You're watching the ANEC Sports Podcast on YouTube. The show starts right now.
Welcome to episode 17 of the ANEC Sports Podcast. My name is Sam Frick, founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, covering 30 schools across Northeast Indiana and parts of Elkhart County. That includes the ACAC, the NECC, and the Northeast 8. And so, we are getting close to the holiday break here across the entire country, and obviously that means we're getting close to a start of a new year as we wrap up 2024. Obviously, since the last time we talked, we had some big matchups coming up that took place within all three of the conferences here in boys and girls basketball. We'll go ahead and kick things off with the NECC and girls basketball, since this episode will be pretty much a pretty NECC friendly type of episode, as our two guests will be representing the NECC for girls basketball, ironically in the same sectional, no less. You take a look at the NECC right now, and obviously you look at Eastside, they're having the best start 77-78 season, which they were in the ACAC. They tied that program record for the longest unbeaten streak to begin the season in the history of the program. They can snap that streak on Tuesday when they travel to Corner.Part to take on a very talented Panthers team coached by Jared Eastep. His superstar guard, A. Gray, just became the school's all-time leading scorer amongst girls basketball players, as she reached 1,299 points entering this week, surpassing Chloe Joliffe, who set that record just a few years ago at Corner.Part. This was at Blackford that she broke the school record for girls basketball. And so we want to give our brief congrats to Ava McGrade on becoming the program's career scoring leader at Corner.Part Christian Schools. And obviously, you look at Corner.Part, nice team as usual, 8-2, going into a pretty laid back week of girls basketball for Corner.Part as they take on Eastside. That's obviously the big game. But then you got Hamilton on the road on Thursday, and then they'll be off until January the 4th. So they'll get some nice time off to rest up and get ready for a very busy second half of the season for the Corner.Part Christian Panthers. You look at, in addition to Eastside being 10-0, they're 5-0 in conference play. Central Noble also 5-0 in conference play, 8-3 overall. Pretty light week of competition last week for the Central Noble Cougars. Only played 2 games last week on Tuesday and Saturday. They won both of those games, 57-44 at Corner.Part and 46-33 at Westview, as the Cougars starting to play their best basketball right now as we reach into the second half of the season. They're only going to have 2 more games the rest of the month, which will be on the 20th against West Noble, and then the 28th hosting Wawasee, both at home. Both are varsity double headers. And then January 3rd, we kick off the new year, a big matchup with East Noble, which is also going to be a varsity doubleheader. Possibly could be the ANEC game of the week for that week, is the doubleheader of the week between East Noble and Central Noble. Some other news around girls basketball. We'll begin with we'll now shift to the NE8, where Columbia City had a very impressive week of girls basketball. They defeated Homestead 51-47 for their first win against Homestead in girls hoops since 2009-10 season. And this was a game where Addie Baxter had 13 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists in that win against Homestead, to which the Spartans could not get into rhythm that whole game and struggled from the free throw line. Both were a huge part of why Columbia City was victorious in that game. And then the matchup against Norwell on Friday, that was the ANEC game of the week. And after trailing by as many as, as 8 points, I believe, Columbia City came back a strong third quarter where they outscored Norwell 31-17. They defeated Norwell 74-67, to which Addie Baxter had a triple-double, one of the rare feats you can get in a high school game is to get a triple-double. Addie Baxter had 32 points. She had 12 rebounds and then had 11 assists in that win for Columbia City. Not to mention Anissa Tonkel, who came in averaging only 6 points per game. She dropped in a career high 25 against the Norwell Knights, looking very much like her sister Tessa Tonka when she played last year. And Columbia City avenges the losses from last season. Obviously, Homestead a little more a meaningful win for Columbia City just because of how long it's been since they beat Homestead. It's been that long. And for Columbia City to beat both Homestead and Norwell in a single week, let alone a single season, just shows you just how much confidence that program has to have right now as they reach the halfway mark of the regular season. They got a big matchup with Warsaw on Tuesday, and that will be one of the games of the week at Around the Northeast Corner as we split up boys and girls basketball this week at NEC Sports for the games of the week. Columbia City hosts Warsaw, undefeated on the season, 11-0 Warsaw. They have essentially dominated the entire competition all season long, averaging 71 points per game, and they just beat Plymouth by 40 points, 75-35. They beat Carroll just a few nights earlier by 50, 91-41. And then, they beat Penn by 20 points, 66-46. Beat Valpo in overtime, 73-71. And they just beat Norwell early in the season by 24. So this Warsaw team is legit. Lots of juniors on this team with a lot of talent. Brooke Zartman, the Miami, Ohio commit. Brooke Winchester, one of the lone seniors at Warsaw. She's a Ball State commit. And then you have Jocelyn Bricker. That's a very familiar name for all you Central Noble fans. Jocelyn Bricker is a Warsaw superstar as well. She's related to the Bricker that played at Central Noble in the 90s. So that shows you the connections. There are some local Noble County connections with this one as well. I'm drawing a blank for a minute, but let me just look real quick just because I want to make sure I respect the family tradition here. Ryan Bricker was a player that played at Central Noble in the late 90s. Jocelyn Bricker is the current star guard on the Warsaw Tigers. And so this Warsaw team is going to be a challenge for Columbia City. It's going to be a tremendous game to prepare them for the rest of the season as they look to hoist the NEA championship, and more importantly, winning their first sectional championship since the year 2000 when they went all the way to the state finals in Class 3A. Guess what? They're back in Class 3A this year. So they're going to have an opportunity to try to make a run here and to silence the narratives of Columbia City can't playoffs. And I know these fans of Columbia City are getting tired of that. I know. They're tired of it. But this is what a week it was for Columbia City. And all due respect to Homestead and all due respect to Norwell, they're going to be just fine. But for Columbia City to win those two games in that one single week, the confidence is through the roof right now for this Columbia City team. And if you look at the NEA standings, Belmont 10-1, 2-0 conference play. They're off to one of the best starts in program history. Not to mention the Blakeys are taking over the Belmont girls basketball program right now. You have Emily Blakey, who's a senior. She had a triple-double against Bishop Lures last Wednesday or Thursday. Can't recall the date for sure, but it was last week. It was last Wednesday against Bishop Lures where they won by 30 points. She had 20 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists or 9 steals in that win against Bishop Lures. And then Ashley Blakey is averaging around 12 points per game. She's having a nice freshman year for the Belmont Braves. And, it's a very deep team. You got some players back from last year, including Cameron Jarvis and Kate Kitson, right? There's another Blakey on this team as well. That's also a freshman. So you're seeing a lot of present in the future with Belmont as the Braves are still once again a contender for an NEA championship, despite the fact they had to replace a really good player by the name of Haley Cole, who's now at Trine University, but had a great career at Belmont, no less. Belmont is still in the conversation. And then also looking in this conference standings, DeKalb 1-1 in conference play, 7-3 overall. They're coming off a dominant week as well for the Cal Barons, where they defeated the Leo Lions 57-39. That's got to feel good for Coach Stuckey's Barons. And then beat the rival across the tracks, as Coach Stuckey would always say, the Garrett Railroaders 43-28. And the Cal looks to stay in that conference hunt. They got a big week coming up, especially against Norwell a week, not a week from Saturday, but this Saturday coming up, they're going to be taking on the Norwell Knights at the Castle, a game to see where the Cal measures up as they enter the second half of the season. And then lastly, we look at the ACAC with the Woodland Warriors and the Bluffton Tigers. That was our ACAC game of the week. The Bluffton Tigers dominated the Woodland Warriors 66-43. Conley all had 22 points, 10 rebounds in that game for the Bluffton Tigers. They also had a dominant win against Wabash, 78-52. That's a pretty good Wabash team competing for the TRC. And again, Conley all, nice game for her. And then Isabel Stout had a career high of 27 points in that win for the Bluffton Tigers back on Tuesday of last week. Isabel Stout is averaging 20.5 points per game. At some point, we may be looking at Isabel Stout in a race for 1,000 points, as she is scoring enough points to potentially be in that conversation about the next few weeks or so. But nonetheless, the Bluffton Tigers have a very special team in place. And with the win against the Woodland Warriors last Friday, the Bluffton Tigers are halfway there to their first ever conference championship in girls basketball. Now, obviously, Bluffton has 3 more conference games to go, and they still have to play Jay County, which is going to be on January the 10th. Might be the ANEC game of the week, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But Jay County is down by their standards this year. They're only 4-5 going into this week. They nearly lost to Adams Central just a couple nights ago in overtime, 53-50. Jay County did win that game, but they needed a freshman to score 21 points. Kayla Brunswick, I believe it is, and she led the Patriots to the win over the Jets in overtime, which they had not lost to Adams Central since 1983, as I was told. So, very interesting starts to the ACAC conference play as Bluffton looks to try to win their first ever conference championship. One thing to note here for the ACAC tournament was unveiled earlier last week at Decatur, Indiana, in that famous restaurant that they always host the ACAC tournament. And this will be the 102nd ACAC tournament and the 51st for girls basketball. Last year, Adams Central won their second straight conference tournament championship for the first time in program history, while Jay County won their 4th straight ACAC tournament championship, the longest streak of conference tournament championships since Leo from about 20 years ago. So that's how historic of a run is for Jay County right now. But it does seem like right now, both of those tournament streaks are in jeopardy because the boys is very wide open this year. And then the girls tournament is probably the most wide open we have seen in years. As you look at the conference tournament brackets, and I will show it on the screen here, but the first round of the ACAC tournament will take place on the 14th of January, which will be on a Tuesday. Adams Central is going to Southern Wells. Jay County is going to South Adams. Bluffton is going to Woodland. The girls' teams just met last Friday, so you know there's going to be some motivation there for the Woodland Warriors to try to pull up an upset again. Heritage drew the bye and will play either at Adams Central or Southern Wells on Friday. Friday will be the day of semifinal match of the ACAC tournament on the 17th of January. Looking at Adams Central and Southern Wells, on paper, Southern Wells is the favorite on the girls' side. This is one of their best teams in program history. They are currently 10-2 going into this week. Adams Central just picked up a big win on Saturday, which is last night at the time of this recording, where Ava Stafford dropped 30 points and made the most threes in a single game in the history of Adams Central basketball, which is impressive. And it broke Stafford's own record as well. So you got that matchup potentially looming at the Raider Dome, in Ponito. On the boys' side, Adams Central is a heavy favorite to win this matchup. Trey Smaller and Braylon Weaver are two of the big returnees back for the Jets, despite graduating Isaac Schultz from last year, which he is, I believe, at Grace College now because he was at ONU and then decommitted from ONU and then committed to, I believe it's Grace College. But anyway, the Jets are once again favorites to get out of that first round matchup, which would potentially be an interesting matchup with Heritage on Friday. On the girls' side, Jay County and South Adams will play each other this Saturday. That's a game we will talk about at ANEC Sports as one of the bonus coverage of basketball. That it'll be interesting to see how these two teams stack up before they meet again in the conference tournament. South Adams has looked better each and every game in the first year back under Brett Freeman. Brett Freeman is the uncle of Sidney Freeman, who's now at Purdue Fort Wayne, and he is the all-time winningest coach in the history of South Adams girls basketball. But anyway, this will be an intriguing matchup to see how South Adams defense matches up with the offense of Hallie Schwieterman and the Jay County Patriots. And then obviously Bluffton Woodland will be the other first-round matchup. On the boys' side, probably more of a toss-up, but Jay County does have a pretty decent team. They're coming off a double overtime win against Newcastle last night, 58-56 for the Jay County Patriots. Quietly having a solid year so far for the Jay County Patriots. South Adams looked pretty good so far under Coach Rowe, including a 40-38 win over the Cherubusco Eagles, where Titus Lehman had 16 points. So yeah, not only can Titus Lehman throw the football, he can also shoot some basket. He can also make some baskets as well for the Starfires. And then on the girls' side, obviously Bluffton Woodland. We've already talked about that matchup earlier, but 66-43 win for Bluffton, and they'll have to once again hope to have a pretty efficient offense and hope to keep Lissa Anderson contained as much as possible, as this Woodland team is incredibly young, but still pretty competitive no less. On the boys' side, probably a little bit more of a toss-up matchup on paper, because Woodland, a little bit of a retool season, I guess, so to speak, for Woodland, although they do bring back Trey Yoder, who's on his way to 1,000 points at some point this year. They also have Oliver Adams, the big and the strong big inside for the Woodland Warriors. Pretty young team still, but also big and athletic as well. Bluffton slowly having a nice start to the season. I believe only one loss so far this year for the Bluffton Tigers in 5 games, and Declan Greiser is averaging 23.8 points per game, which leads the ACAC. So you not only have Isabel Stout leading the conference story on the girls' side, you have Bluffton boys having a player leading in the conference for the boys. And again, another intriguing matchup there, no less. Again, some storylines coming into the conference tournament are going to look like this. Southern Wells obviously has never won a girls basketball conference tournament. Southern Wells has a chance to make it to the conference tournament championship for the first time in decades for the program. They've had some nice runs in the early 2010s, late 2000s, but it's been a lot of struggles for that program since then. And then you look at Bluffton girls never winning a conference championship or conference tournament. Bluffton has an opportunity to do so this season for both the conference and the conference tournament. And then on the boys' side, Adams Central trying to win their 3rd straight conference championship. Woodland has knocked on the door a couple of times, coming up just short the past couple years. Bluffton almost made it to the championship game last year. Lost a heartbreaker to Heritage at the buzzer last year in the semifinals. Bluffton could get back to that championship stage this year, which will be hosted by South Adams on Saturday, the 18th. So that's some news on that. Oh, yeah. And then we want to talk about the boys' side real quick. So give me just a minute as I load up the boys' basketball side. So far, let's kind of start with the ACAC. As I mentioned earlier, Adams Central got a late start to the season because of the football team winning a state championship. So they've only played 3 games so far. It's been about what you expect for a team getting off to a late start to the season. They dominate Southern Wells by 41 points, lost to Muncie Central by the score of 57-48. And then they came back from a late deficit, about 4 or 5 points. They came back to beat Canterbury 44-41, where Trace Muller had 22 points in that game for the Adams Central Flying Jets as they beat the defending 1A state champions, the Fort Wayne Canterbury Cavaliers. This week, they got a road trip to Whitco on Tuesday, a rebuilding Whitco team, no less, under Robert Werrick. And then on Friday, the ANEC game of the week will be at the Hangar in Monroe, Indiana, Woodland at Adams Central. Probably the 2 top-tier contenders in the ACAC, unless Tito Ball and Bluffton can say otherwise. But nevertheless, Adams Central will be one of the teams to keep an eye on this week, as well as the Woodland Warriors, who are off to a slow start, 2-4 in the season. They've had some close losses along the way. Lost to New Haven by 4. They lost to Garrett 52-38. Lost to Angola in triple overtime, 81-72. And then last night lost to Leo 49-40. So they've had a lot of close losses along the way. A lot of good teams they lost to in the process. But this Woodland Warriors team, if they can get some bounces all the way, play 4 quarters of Woodland basketball, they're essentially having a better record than what you're seeing right now. And the thing about the regular season is you've got an opportunity right now to be better the next game. And Woodland only needs just one bounce going their way, and the entire season could change that fast. So Woodland is a talented team. They are young in some ways, but it's a talented team with some experience and a lot of talent and size. And that could be a matchup nightmare for Adams Central, as the Jets are going to have to realize that they haven't done so already. They are going to have to be careful about just putting all their aids on trying to guard Trey Yoder when you have Oliver Adams inside. You got Mason Yoder who can hit some threes. Delagrange can hit some threes. Halsey can hit some threes. And so this Adams Central Woodland matchup is intriguing nonetheless. Shifting over with Bluffton, 3-1 this season. They are going to be taking on Southern Wells on Saturday, followed by Garrett on Saturday. Intriguing matchup. Both can be taking place at the Tiger Den. And Heritage off to a 4-1 start this season, one of their best starts in 5 years for the Heritage Patriots under Kyle Sovine. And they got Blackhawk Christian coming to Monroeville on Tuesday. Blackhawk Christian 4-1 the season. Some say are still a contender even in the state tournament, despite the fact they moved up to 3A this year. They've won 3 state championships over the past 5 years or so. And this Blackhawk Christian team is a powerhouse over the course of the past several years in Fort Wayne, dating back to the dominant golden years of Mark Davison, the late Mark Davison, who sadly passed away a couple years ago after that 2021-22 season. But that's a good test for Heritage to see where they are as they prepare for South Adams on the 20th, and they go to Northup on the 21st. So that pretty much does it for the ACAC, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the NE8 real quick. Conference play for the NE8 begins this week. And so far with the NE8, we've seen Columbia City off to a nice start, 4-1 this season. We have seen the transfer Kaden Berner having a nice start this season, averaging around 11 points per game, 7 rebounds, 6 rebounds. He had nearly a double-double in the win over Wawasee last week. You had Landon Richmond, the junior, who had a small role in the team last year that won a conference championship, but Richmond is one of the star players this year for Columbia City, averaging 13 points per game. He's had a couple double-doubles this year for the Columbia City Eagles. As you know, rebounding is a big part of Columbia City basketball, and Richmond is just a recent name of Columbia City players that are instilling fundamentals, great basketball, and be able to play tough defense. And if you look at Columbia City, they got a matchup against East Snowball on Friday at the Birdcage in Columbia City. East Snowball had a late start to the season because of the run to the state finals. This is also an injury-riddled team right now with Riker Quake out for the season for East Snowball. They have some other guys that are injured along the way, but still could potentially return at some point this season. But right now, East Snowball is playing a short bench right now for the Knights, and a young bench nonetheless for East Snowball. They are 0-3. They lost to Northrop by 19 points, lost to Goshen by 3, and they're coming off a 17-point loss to Carroll on Saturday. But Kobe Ritchie and Nathan Boker have been the bright spots for East Snowball. Boker averaging around 11 points per game. Kobe Ritchie's averaging 14 points per game for East Snowball, as Brandon Jernell's team looks to ride the ship of adversity and looking to play their best basketball towards the end of the season. Other teams to keep an eye on, Leo, Norwell, are obviously going to be teams to keep an eye on. Huntington North is a sneaky team potentially in that midst. Leo's coming off a nice win over Woodland on Saturday, to which we got to see a little bit of Jair Sampson for the first time, contributing in a big role for Leo this year after spending the past 3 years at Carroll. Now transferred to Leo. So now he's part of this nice Leo team under Derek Heinen, where Sol Richards been the leading scorer for the team. You have Nolan Heitschuh being Nolan Heitschuh as a sharpshooter for the Leo Lions. Very nice team. A lot of interesting pieces for this team as they will be going to Huntington North on Friday, for the NE8 game of the week on the boys' side. Leo at Huntington North. Huntington North's 1-3 on the season. They've had a tough schedule to begin the season. Their lone win came against Northfield on the 27th, 62-44. They followed that with a 66-65 overtime loss to Mississinawa, 77-53 loss to Warsaw, and then lost by 22 points to Manchester on the road, 71-49. So they've played a variety of different teams, variety of different styles of basketball, and some talent along the way. This should be a intriguing matchup at Bob Strait Courts at North Arena in Huntington, Indiana. And then Norwell is going to be taking on DeKalb on that same day, Friday. Norwell at DeKalb, always a tough place to play for Norwell. They've had some struggles in DeKalb over the years, so this should be a matchup as the Fighting McBrides take on the DeKalb Barons. And then lastly, we look at the NECC. Angola had a triple overtime win over Woodland, their first triple overtime game since 1999. They followed that with a 56-44 win over Garrett, where Niles Knights had 20 points and 7 rebounds. Unfortunately, they did fall to Northridge yesterday, 80-20, but this is a really good Northridge team. They should be able to bounce back from that game because those games are going to happen, right? But Angola is fine. They're 4-2 still, 2-0 in conference play. Angola, interestingly, is going to have an interesting matchup on Friday, the 20th, when they host the Westview Warriors, a critical conference game for both the Westview Warriors and the Angola Hornets. It's kind of been a nice basketball rivalry over the years. It was a close game last year. Angola, I'm pretty sure, has beaten Westview a couple of times recently. And so Angola has given Westview some trouble recently. And even for Chandler Pripple's team, which is off to a really nice start to the season, they've had some trouble with this Angola team. And now with this physical defense, with Niles Knotts being the dominant forward he is as a freshman, intriguing matchup no less, with Westview having a nice start to season forward, 2-0 in conference play. And here, can you be quiet just a little bit? Anyway, you look at the Westview Warriors, 4-2, 2-0 in conference play. They are going to be taking on Lakeland on Tuesday in a doubleheader. Their game will be the nightcap of that doubleheader. Westview, Lakeland, both contenders in the NECC race. And you look at Westview with Austin Slayball having a tremendous start, averaging 17 points per game, 17.3 to be exact, leading the conference in scoring. You have Owen Brill playing tough defense as usual. Caden Grau having an emergence of a junior season for the Westview Warriors. And then you have another year at Westview. Surprisingly, Daniel Yoder is another start Yoder for the Westview Warriors. So if you're getting tired of trying to memorize which Yoder it is, Daniel Yoder is just another name of that family of basketball ballers at Westview. They're going to be taking on a Lakeland team that's had some tough wins against Fairfield and Bethany Christian, a 20-point loss to South Bend St. Joseph. But Lakeland is balanced. They're talented and they're athletic experience with Keenan Royal and Keenan Merrifield and Levi Cook, Justin Carlson. It's a veteran team under Coach TJ Schneider, as this Lakeland team will be facing a very good Westview team. Both teams match up very well together. Very similar teams, very talented teams. Should be a fun atmosphere up in LaGrange. And then just want to make sure don't forget anything. Garrett 5-1 overall in the season, 2-1 in conference play. Garrett had a tough loss against the Angola Hornets on Friday. They will try to bounce back in conference action, but they'll have to wait a week to do so because they're going to have some non-conference action this week. They are going to be taking on Belmont on Wednesday, and then they'll go to Bluffton on Saturday. And then lastly, the Central Noble Cougars and the West Noble Chargers will square off on Friday the 20th, the Battle of Noble County, as Central Noble seeking their first win of the season as their 0-4, 0-2 conference play. A very brutal start to the season for the Central Noble Cougars as they fell to Canterbury, Angola, Southside, and then lost to Westview by 32 points last night. West Noble's only played 4 games so far. They had a close 5-point loss to Bethany Christian a couple weeks ago, 65-60. Lost to Wawasee 52-28, and then lost to Concord by 14. They are just coming off a 10-point win against last night, 49-39. This week will be mostly a Noble County week for West Noble. They're going to East Noble tomorrow, a rescheduled matchup from early that was supposed to be played earlier this year, but that was rescheduled due to East Noble playing the state finals of football. They'll play each other tomorrow at the Big Blue Pit, and then CN will be hosting the Chargers on Friday at the Jungle in Albany, Indiana, before West Noble mates the the drive up north to Angola to play in the Trine Shootout, and they'll be taking on a powerful Ohio school in Wayne Trace, which they faced last year. So that's pretty much going to do it in terms of what we've seen so far in basketball and whatnot. We'll talk more about wrestling in a separate video, but for now, I will shift over to the interviews. I'm here with the head girls basketball coach of the Eastside Blazers, Mike Lortie. Mike, you're coaching your team to a 10-0 start, which ties a program record for the best start in program history with the 77-78 team. Coach, how are things going for you?
Really good. We've had a great start to the season, and hopefully, Tuesday we can get that number 11 and put that in the record books.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a matter of moments. But I want to just kind of briefly go back to last season. This was a team last year that had high expectations. Obviously, most of the same team as this year's team. Came up just short of winning the conference and then the sectional, but winning the first conference tournament since 1994, I believe, for the Eastside Lady Blazers. Coach, talk about last season and how much that season kind of built off of what we are seeing so far this year.
Well, I mean, beginning of last year, we had changed, the way we play a little bit. We play a little faster than we have in the past. We press a little bit more in the past, and it just kept developing last year, in the year that we had. It was great to win the ACAC tournament. We had a tough loss at Fairfield the week prior to that for the conference championship. And, it feeds, what happened to us at the end of the year kind of feeds what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm. And you look at this team, Coach, again, a lot of the same players from last year. Lily Kresher, who's been at least a 2-year starter, played a little bit her sophomore year, just a couple of years ago. Paige Stratzer, I believe, is at least a 3-year starter with the Blazers. Sydney Kessler, again, another Kessler at Eastside, who's kind of does a little bit of everything for them. Those are very familiar names, Coach. It's not an accident that these names come up out of Eastside. Paige Stratzer, taking off this year as a sophomore. Talk about what these kids bring to Eastside, and then what are some things that you see off the court with this team?
On and off the court, the biggest thing with our group is they all get along. They hang out with each other. They support each other when they're doing other sports. These seniors have led this for, this year really well. I mean, they've been in the program long enough that they know what the expectations are. They're great students. I think we have 19 girls, and almost every one of them's on the honor roll, and they're just great kids. They're fun to be around, and they work extremely hard.
Mm-hmm. And that work ethic shows with the defensive presence that they bring with that press and having one of the best defenses in all of Indiana, holding teams to just 34 points a game, which is very good in girls basketball. You look at the schedule, Coach. Obviously, your schedule is not a cookie cutter by any means. Like, you're playing Concordia, a 3A school. You played a good Blackhawk team, beat Fremont by 22 points. Leo is usually a perennial power in the eastern part of Allen County. Angola's had a good team. Lures won state last year. Woodland's a contender in the ACAC. Garrett, Bosco, Prairie Heights, to name a few there. When you look at the course of the season so far, what has led you to go to that 10-0 start? You talked about the work ethic. What are other things you've seen with this team that's gotten to the start that they've had so far?
Well, we've continually gotten better. At the beginning of the year, offensively, we were really good, but I wasn't real happy with the way we were playing defense. Even though we were pressing people, we still missed assignments in the half court. But we have continuously improved that, and it's starting to really show up now. And that's the thing. We want to keep getting better all year long. And, when you got a bunch of girls that just work and they listen and they pay attention to details, and it just gets improvement all, every day, every week, and we just keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Looking ahead to your schedule, you only have 3 games throughout the rest of this month. You got a road trip to Lakewood Park on Tuesday, which is just a short drive for your school, down to Auburn. They got Ava McGrade at Lakewood Park, the all-time leading scorer for the program. She just said it last Thursday at Blackford. She's obviously going to be a handful for your team. And this is a team with a lot of seniors, a lot of nice talent that Jared Eastep has brought to Lakewood Park. What does Lakewood Park bring that's going to challenge your team on Tuesday night?
Well, I mean, Ava McGrade's a very, very good player. And she's got some supporting acts that's pretty good too. We have to respect them. We're going to try to, contain her. I don't think you can shut her down. I mean, you have to try to contain her and then play, everybody else and box out. You do all the little things. If you do all the little things, and I think we can be successful, but it's those kind of things that's got to happen for us overall. Again, she's a very good player, and they got a couple of other girls that are really good supporting acts with them.
Mm-hmm. This is Mike Lortie, the head girls basketball coach of the Eastside Lady Blazers. Coach, this community is obviously a very small community, very small town in Butler, Indiana, and Eastside's been involved in some very, very impactful community events. You had the Coaches versus Cancer Night, I believe, against Garrett. That drew a lot of attention there. You got the upcoming Old Gym Night, I believe it is, the Old Butler Gym, coming up on January the 7th, I believe, when you're hosting the DeKalb Barons. That's a building that's been around for at least 7 decades and whatnot, and that brings a lot of old school vibes to the game of basketball. What does events like the Coaches Cancer Night and the Old Butler Gym Night bring the connection to Eastside basketball and Butler?
Well, our community is great. Our community support is really well. I mean, you look in the last few years, some of the other sports have had a lot of success. Football had their runs in a couple of years, and even this year, they made a run to the sectional the finals. But the softball, they've had extreme success, and the community is wonderful. I mean, they come out, they support. With the Coaches versus Cancer Night, it was a special night. And we did, really nice job, over $2,000 for cancer that's going to be donated. The old gym is the old gym. It's a very cool building. And if you've never been in the old gym, you need to get there because it's just a fun night. We bring in some entertainment between games. We've had Michael Jackson, we've had the Beatles, had Elvis. So, I mean, we try to, have a little bit of fun with that night. And I think it's going to be a really good night, bringing in DeKalb this year on January 7th, local rival. I think it'll be a really good night.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's those neighboring communities too. So it's just going to connect not just Eastside and Butler, but also all of DeKalb County in terms of the history of basketball as a whole. Coach, I told you December is pretty light, but you got a very busy month of January coming up. You still have Belmont on the 3rd, just before that DeKalb game. You're going to be hosting Fairfield just on the final game before the conference tournament on January the 10th. You have the NECC tournament on the 14th, which you drew West Noble in the conference tournament. Obviously, this is a program that's never repeated as conference tournament champions before, so there's a little bit of history that's still on the line for the Eastside Blazers. As we get closer to that final month of the regular season, how do you want to be able to be at your best position so that when you're in a position to win a conference championship, in a position to win a sectional championship, you're prepared for the opportunity to achieve those goals?
Well, I come back to, we need to get better every day. Even though our opponents that we have coming up here in December, we have to prepare for them just like we prepare for everybody else. And it becomes a routine, and we just need to concentrate on, getting better at our coverages on defense and where we need to be offensively, keep attacking people. So we can put ourselves in a position. We've talked about how the girls have been fueled all year. That's our motto, is being fueled after what happened last year. We thought we should have went a little bit further, but hey, we got beat by a good Central Noble team. And, we just want to fuel ourselves every day. Coaches and players, we challenge ourselves to do that. We challenge each other to do that, and, put ourselves in the best position to be successful. Come January, it becomes kind of a crazy race with everything going on, with all the games. And then, of course, after we play Belmont and DeKalb, we won't see a non-NECC school unless we have the opportunity to play in the regional. It's just, we're going to see NECC opponents, 90% of the time in January.
Yeah, especially with your sectional being all NECC sectional, which also includes Lakeland. They're a new member of that sectional this year. So it's very much all NECC after the Cal game and whatnot. Coach, one final question for me, Coach. I think we might have talked about this before, but Coach, you have had an interesting road to get to where you are today with the Eastside Lady Blazers. When I first heard about you, Coach, you were a JV head coach on the boys team, which obviously they ended up having some success later on for the boys basketball team. Coach, talk about how grateful you are to be able to still be coaching basketball today, and the opportunities that Eastside has brought to your career.
Eastside's been great to me. Years ago, I was a JV coach at Woodland for the boys for a while. I decided to take a couple of years off, and Coach Abbott, who's now our superintendent, and I coached him and our oldest son way back when they were in junior high. He kind of pulled me out of retirement. I said, well, Coach, I'll give you 2 years. We get going there. So I was his varsity assistant on the boys' side. And, 14 years later, I'm still at Eastside. And it's great. I love the community. I love the school. The administration is wonderful. The parents are great. And I'm just grateful that they give me the opportunity to be the head coach on the girls' side. It's been a blast. I really am enjoying myself. The girls are wonderful to work with, and it's just a lot of good times on the girls' side, and hopefully we keep this thing going.
All right, Coach. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, I just like to, thank you for the time you've invested in high school basketball in the area. I know you got some, college coverages and stuff that you've been doing, but, we appreciate people like you and other guys that come out and, cover our teams and take care of our communities. I think you guys do a really good job, and it's, keep that thing going.
All right. Thank you, Coach. This is Mike Lortie, the head girls basketball coach of Eastside, as they look to build off their 10-0 start, get that elusive 11 win, which would be a program record, and look to build off towards January. Coach, good luck on the rest of the season.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I'm here with the head girls basketball coach of the Lakeland Lakers, James Benson, in his second year with the Lakers. Some improvement this year, 3-7, entering a big matchup coming up against Westfield. We'll talk about that later on in the interview. Coach, how are things going for you?
Going pretty well. We love the progress that we're making with our girls right now. We've had a really tough start to our season, and hasn't always ended in the results we wanted, but we're starting to see that turn of where we want to be, and we're hoping that comes in the second half of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So last season, this team went 4-19, I believe. It took you 15 games to get your first win of the season last year, which was an overtime throw against Northside. Dulce Canino had a great game against Northside at Trine University. This year, it only took you 2 games to get that first win of the season. So you can see the progress being made here. Coach, when you look at this team, obviously it's still a very young team, still a lot of work to be done, but where have you seen the growth from last year to this year?
I think it's just the maturity. Last year when I got the job, we didn't get a summer to really work together. I got the job late June, so all the summer stuff had already been done. The girls were kind of transitioning into their fall sports, so we really didn't get the time to gel and put things in and talk about what we wanted to be as a basketball team. This year we got a summer, and we were able to kind of put things in that we wanted to put in, kind of explain things more. It wasn't just on the fly, putting in stuff. That really helped us out. And I think it's just getting to know the girls more. I think there's just been a lot of we've connected as a group, from the players to the coaches to our managers, everything. We're just more connected. And that's led to better results on the court.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I've noticed right away with Lakeland is the defensive game. You can definitely see improvement this year. The rebounding game has really improved from last year. I think we saw a little bit towards the end of last season, but this year you're really starting to see that maturity really take place on the defensive side. We talked a lot about Dulce Canito before the season started, but Zoe Bowman has really really skyrocketed this year, as I believe she's a sophomore this year, if I recall. And then you have Kara Shacko playing some good defense, coming off just shy of a double-double. in your last game against the Bethany Christian Bruins. Coach, talk about Zoe Bowman's progression. She's already putting a nice number so far this year for your team.
Yeah, Zoe, I was talking to another coach, and his comment was she might be one of the most improved players in the area. And she's probably our best rebounder, and she's only 5'6". She's just so aggressive. And I think it's just confidence. Her and Mackenzie Carlson both, as freshmen, were kind of thrown into the fire, so to speak. Like, they had to start because we had to have them because we were so low on numbers last year. And it was painful at times for them to go through that process last year. But in the long run, it's really helped them because they went through a year of going through those struggles and going through those battles. Zoe's confidence, I think, and a lot of it, I give credit to Stephanie, the volleyball coach. She's done a great job with those girls. And she saw that progress come to fruition in volleyball, and she's taken that confidence from there into basketball. Her shot's been improved. She's getting to the basket. She's been probably our best on the ball defender this year, and she's got a really bright future ahead of her. She puts in the work and she asks the right questions. I couldn't say enough nice things about Zoe and what she's done for us this year.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, with volleyball, they're coming off a sectional championship in volleyball. So obviously the good work in volleyball has kind of proceeded to the basketball court, so to speak. Coach, you talked about defense, and coming up on Tuesday, you got the NECC doubleheader of the week. You're hosting Westview in a boys-girls doubleheader, girls first, boys to follow. This is the LaGrange County Civil War, as I usually call it. Very, very intense rivalry between these two schools for many, many years. It's kind of got hot recently. And last year, this was one of your closer games last year where you lost by 7 points. It was a high-scoring contest, kind of a weird game in a way at Westview. You know what the Warriors are going to bring. They're going to have some sharp shooters on the team. They're going to have some solid rebounders. They're also a team that's improved from last year as well. They're already having 6 wins going into this week. Janessa Lehman, a nice player all around for their team. Bree Corey's a strong defender in the post and whatnot. You got Karis Weinberg, who's becoming a nice shooter on this team. She had 7 threes to tie a program record in a single game. So, Coach, you're gonna have your hands full a little bit in that matchup with the Westview Warriors. What stands out to you about this matchup?
I think what just stands out is how balanced they are. It's really hard to just key in on one person for them. One night it could be Weinberg. You know, she had that game against Bethany Christian that really opened a lot of people's eyes. The next night it could be Lehman. It could be Corey one night. They're very balanced. And Ryan's a really good coach. He's been there for a long time. And those girls know what they need to do to win. And they have played all together. It's the same system they've had. They know how to play their roles. And I think it's just important for us to be disciplined, getting out the shooters, making everything tough for them. Because if you just give them open shots, they're going to cash them in. And so being disciplined, following the scouting report, knowing what their strengths are, each individual person, and just make it difficult for them. It's going to be an awesome environment. This is a game that when we talk about at the beginning of the year, our girls circle this one. It's a big rivalry game. And I think our girls are going to be ready to go.
Mm-hmm. And then following your girls game, you got the big boys game between these same two schools, which many would say would be the top 2 teams in the NECC on the boys side. Now, I want to shift over to the schedule coming up this week. This is the only time this season, outside the conference tournament and the postseason, that you're going to have more than 2 games in a single week. All 3 of these games are not easy games whatsoever. You got the game against Westview on Tuesday. You go to Angola on 20, playing the Hornets, a 4-win Angola team, I should say. Got off to a late start to the season because of volleyball going to state finals. And they've had some nice wins this year, including against Concordia and Leo, a team you only lost by 7 points earlier this season. And then you got Eastside, a 10-0 Eastside team, coming to your gym on, I believe it's Friday, or if I recall. Saturday, excuse me. Saturday. But anyway, Saturday. Talk about that week coming up. This is a big week to prepare you for not only for the conference tournament, but what's to come in sectionals, because now that Lakeland is in 2A, you're playing all NECC sectional, which also includes Westview.
Yeah, no, this is a good practice, kind of dry run for sectionals, especially because two of the teams that we're playing are in our sectional. Westview, we just try to teach that one game mentality. Like, let's go 1-0, and then we'll worry about the other two later. But yeah, Angola, you just can't teach their length. They're so long everywhere. Holman, Stillman, I'm sure I'm forgetting some, Reinhard, like all of them are just so long. And that presents a challenge. It's hard to replicate in practice, especially when you got 5'3" guards, 5'4" guards, 5'6" guards. It's hard to replicate that. So that's definitely going to be a challenge, especially with the pressure they apply to teams. And then Saturday, Eastside, they're just so balanced. You can't, just like Westview, you can't key on just one player. Kessler's good. Traxler's good. The sophomores, Mack and Kitchens, both are good. And I'm sure I'm forgetting people. It's going to be a challenge for us, but it's something that our girls have embraced. We've talked about embracing hard, embracing tough. It's going to be a good opportunity for us to kind of see where we're at. We want to obviously win these games, but we want to see where we want to get, where we need to be to get to sectionals. And if we're going to win a sectional championship, we're probably going to have to go through a Westview or an Eastside or a Central Noble even. So this is a good opportunity to kind of see where we stack before Christmas, before we get to that second half of the season.
Mm-hmm. Postseason success came just about 3 years ago for Lakeland. Remember that 2021 senior class won their first sectional since 96, and that was some didn't think that would happen that year because West Noble was seen as the favorite that year in the Madeley Hartsville class. It was a special run and whatnot, and obviously your team looking to build off and trying to get close to that memory of 2021. Coach, one more question for me as you get through your second season and whatnot. You've had a very interesting road to get to Lakeland. You've had stints at Central Noble and Garrett along the way. You're from Garrett, Indiana, and whatnot, so you've known from Bob Lapadot and John Bodie and whatnot. Talk about how much you appreciate about the people around you that have got you to where you are today.
Man, we could do an entire interview on that, and I might get emotional talking about it. John Bodie has done a lot for me. When I graduated, we had a meeting my senior year, and he asked me, what do you want to do? And I said I wanted to teach and I wanted to coach. And when he got the job at Central Noble, he gave me my first opportunity coaching a Club 1 team. And, I made mistakes as a younger coach. I get fiery on the sideline, and, he mentored me through that stuff. And he gave me opportunity after opportunity. And I was very fortunate to be at Central Noble when we had Connor Asesian, when we had Logan Guard, and we had a pretty special run. And those are memories that you just never forget. And there's coaches who go their whole lives not getting to do that. And so I'm always grateful for John and everything he's done for me. It's always special when I get to see him. And last year was pretty cool getting to play him. It's going to be weird going to Garrett and playing them this year. But then Bob, my only regret is I didn't get more time to learn from Bob. He was my teacher when I was at Garrett, and he always has time to talk to me when I have questions and stuff. And he really kind of helped me that year that I coached JV at Garrett. He just said, when you're a head coach, this is what I would do. We would talk a lot about those kind of things. And to this day, I can text him. I could text him right after this interview, and he was like, hey, I got a question on this. What do you think? And he'll answer right away. He's such a great guy. And like I said, those two, I couldn't say enough nice things about and what they've done for my career. I would not be at Lakeland without either of them. And I'm grateful for everything they've done for me. And I'm excited to take everything that they've taught me and apply it to where I'm at. I really love where we're at right now, how we keep growing, and hopefully we can kind of replicate the success I was a part of at Central Noble and at Garrett. So I owe those two so much. Couldn't say enough nice things about both of them.
You talked about that run with Connor Asesian when he was at Central Noble. In your short time at Garrett, you had this really good girls basketball player by the name of Bailey Kellum. I think she's doing quite well at Huntington University.
Oh man, it was a pretty good stretch when it felt like 90% of the time when we went into the gym, we always had the best player between Connor and Bailey. Bailey's such a great kid. I'm honored I got to coach her for the short time I did. I could say that too about like Kelsey Bergman, who's playing volleyball at IU Kokomo. Emma Lapato, she's playing at Marion Ancella. Maddie, who's at St. Francis. I got to coach a lot of great players. I'm very lucky that I was a part of some pretty great basketball teams.
Mm-hmm. This is James Benson, the head girls basketball coach of the Lakeland Lakers. They prepare for a very difficult week of conference competition. First with the Westview matchup on Tuesday, at Angola on Thursday, and then hosting Eastside on Saturday. The Westview game we will preview at ACAC Sports. James, thank you for taking the time to talk about the Lakeland Lakers, and good luck this season.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Sam.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the ACAC Sports Podcast. We'd like to thank basketball head coaches Mike Lortie of Eastside and James Benson of Lakeland for coming on the show to talk about their teams. We will tune in next week for another episode of the ACAC Sports Podcast. Hopefully next week we do bring a very special guest on the football side of things as we reflect on Adams Central's football state run, maybe even get East Snowball football in there as well. We'll hopefully get things aligned as we get closer to next week. Depending on how things go, next week could be the last week of the ACAC Sports Podcast before the new year. So I will let you know if things do change, but as it stands right now, next week, very likely going to be the last week of the ACAC Sports Podcast of 2024 before we move on to the new year. So that's going to do it for this episode. My name is Sam Frick. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you for watching the ANEC Sports Podcast. Please like this video and like the page ANEC Sports on YouTube. Let people know that the ANEC Sports is on YouTube. Also like our Facebook page at Around the Northeast Corner and follow either Around the Northeast Corner and Sam Frick on Twitter/X. We're also on Instagram as well. Just look for ANEC Sports or Around the Northeast Corner and you will find us there. You can also follow the man himself, Sam Frick, the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, for other additional content. This has been an Around the Northeast Corner presentation.